Okay, we're very excited to get started with our next session of the day. So if you'd like to find an open seat, make a friend, so excited to see so many of you here today. This session is all about smart home standards and platforms, and we have a really diverse set of perspectives on the topic to really flesh out this conversation. Very excited about it. Thank you again to our sponsors for your support in putting on our 19th annual Connection Summit at CES. We really, really appreciate your investment in having these great industry conversations and learning from peers. So again, we're talking smart home standards and platforms. We also have lunch sponsored by ADT next door, light lunch, first come, first serve. So if you don't have anything else to scatter onto, that'll be just right down the hall. And then we're back at 1 o'clock for discussion about demand for energy management at home. And we invite you all to our networking reception tonight. If you haven't already, please RSVP for that. It's complimentary. We invite you all. We would love to see you there. I'd love to hear what it is that you're working on. That is over in Treasure Island. And when you RSVP, all that information about where to find it will come through to your email. Thinking about this topic, I think it's really helpful to understand that there is a long history of home automation standards trying to make the devices communicate with each other, with the user, with the cloud, with the various ecosystem players. Going back to X10 in the 1970s, we're going to hear about Z-Wave today, of course, Matter over Thread, Apple HomeKit type standards. Really trying to take this market to the next level and make that experience for the customer at home easier and simpler, and take some jobs off of the players in this room as well. It's not a new effort, right? There's a long history that really the folks today are building on top of and continuously trying to improve. What's interesting when we think about where the smart home is today is that there are a phenomenal number of choices that consumers have in the brands with which they may want to control the devices that are in their home. They may have devices from many of these different players, and they're maybe using it to control one device or several devices. The more devices you have at home, the more platforms you're using to control those devices. We are very much in a multi-agent or multi-control point state in the smart home for sure. And a lot of the work that you're seeing happening behind the scenes is meant to give consumers that choice in what brands they most want to interact with. So we're going to be talking today about how we get to that vision of coordinated, intelligent home experiences. What's the progress in standards today and the pain points that they're solving, as well as the pain points perhaps in the process and what those standards efforts are focusing on this year. And where's the real competitive edge in platforms today? What's really defining the different experiences for the platform choices that consumers have? So I'd love to start by asking each of our phenomenal panelists to introduce themselves and their organizations, and then we will dive in. So I'm going to start with Nick Millett, who's the product development merchant for Smart Home at the Home Depot.
Yeah, hey everybody, Nick Millett. I lead Home Depot's smart home product development efforts. So the Hubspace platform, that is what I've been leading for the past couple of years.
All right, fantastic. And we have limited time, so that is concise, and I love it. Thank you, Nick. Michelle Mandela-Freeman, Chief Operating Officer of Connectivity Standards Alliance.
Okay, my name took up too much time. So hi, everybody. Michelle here with the Connectivity Standards Alliance. We are the home of over 720 member companies who are working together to develop standards like Matter, maintain and grow standards like Zigbee, and work on new things like product security and access control with our newest standard, Aliro. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michelle. Avi Rosenthal, Managing Partner with Blue Connect Partners and Chairman of the Z-Wave Alliance.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. Avi Rosenthal. My day job is with a group called Blue Connect Partners, but my volunteer position, I'm the chair of the Z-Wave Alliance. We are also a coalition of a few hundred companies that all adhere to a specific standard. That standard is coming up on 25 years old. We've got thousands of products that have been certified and literally millions of products around the world that have been deployed.
Okay, wonderful. Stefan Whitkamp with CEO of Homey, now part of the LG Electronics family.
Yes, hello, I'm Stefan. I'm indeed the founder of Homey, recently been acquired by LG. We make a universal smart home platform and also universal smart home hubs that basically incorporate all relevant standards in smart home today. So that includes all the standards of Michelle and of Avi, of course. And because of that, we have a very unique view on what's happening and how users are actually using the different standards that are in the market.
Okay, fantastic. And also Yoon Ho Choi, who's the president of the Home Connectivity Alliance.
Very nice to meet everyone. So HCA, in a nutshell, is an alliance that's focused on long life, long life, big ticket items like appliances and HVAC. And we are focusing on interoperating with both within ourselves, but with all of the other platforms that are out here. Nice to meet everyone.
Okay, fantastic. So I'd love to start. I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research at Parks Associates. Should have introduced myself, but there we are. Hello. If I haven't met you already, I'd love to hear what it is that you're up to. So fantastic. So I'd love to start with talking about the fact that when you think about this long history of the smart home and the developments of standards and platforms, the way in which consumers really acquire devices tends to be very kind of device-led, single device, single app. Melissa on the last panel was talking about that a little bit. Security systems, some hub devices being perhaps the most widespread way that consumers are able to put together a more kind of coordinated home. Broadly speaking, Stefan, I'd love to start with you here and then go to Nick. How would you describe where we're at as an industry today in making a more integrated, coordinated home experience possible?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question because there are these standards and a lot of the products on these standards are interoperable with other products on the standard, but people don't very much choose a standard. They choose a product, they choose a brand, they choose a single application that they want to start out their smart home with. So that's what we did as a sort of universal remote control for the entire home. We decided not to focus on a single standard because in practice, a lot of different standards are used by different popular brands and people might want to mix and match. And some of them might only have a proprietary API or another sort of way of connecting. So our approach is really to offer users later on, so not by design at the first step, but later on they can add on Homey. It would connect with either a Zigbee device, a Z-Wave device, a proprietary API, an open API, or a Matter device. And it would make sure that they can, after that, choose to expand to different standards and to different products and different brands, because it's relatively hard for a consumer to understand that you're not just buying a product, you're also buying into a certain technology, a certain ecosystem, and what it all entails. So our solution to that is just to make sure it doesn't matter later on, to really unify it at all. And I think it's a sign of those different standards, all of them being mature and integrated into popular products.
You make a good point about later on, right? About how many devices do you see customers having before they go for a Homey, for instance, right? How far into their device collection do they?
Yeah, so typically people will start to have a couple of devices, a couple of brands mostly, because if you have 20 devices but they're all the same brand, then there's no real pain point because it's all the Philips Hue app or it's all IKEA or I don't know. But as soon as people start to collect 2 or 3 brands, then you see them purposefully looking for a platform because, a smart home doesn't really feel smart if it's a collection of 20 apps on your phone. And if you leave home, you have to open 5 of them to make sure that they're all in away mode or that they're all set to the right level or the right settings. So you would want to have an automation system, not just for control what it's mainly firstly focused on, but also for automation, so that things happen automatically, and it really becomes a smart home and not just buttons on your phone in scattered apps.
Okay, Nick, I'd love to get your point of view in watching. You know,
Yeah.
you've been in smart home for a while now too, right? Where are we at?
Yeah, so for those of you who are not familiar with Hubspace, Hubspace is a smart home platform that's exclusive to Home Depot. So one of the challenges and the unique things about Home Depot is that's where the mass market consumer is shopping for their DIY, their home good products. One of the challenges with that is selling smart home products to that mass market consumer is a very challenging problem to solve, especially when you have different brands, different apps. So there has been a lot of progress made in getting the price points down. So if I'm going to buy a product from Home Depot, typically a customer is coming in to solve an issue in their house. I have a sprinkler system and I want to automate my hose so that it turns on and turns off at a specific time. If you can get to the point where you have a $10 trade up to get to a smart hose timer where it automatically turns, you can customize it and set it away from home, a customer is much more likely to adopt a smart home product at a lower price point. And then getting to the point where you have the automations and the Jetson smart house where everything runs off of itself, I think the building blocks are coming into place. But I have concerns of selling that to the mass market consumer because I'm not sure that that is necessarily there today for that mass market consumer. If you're an enthusiast who is passionate about it, wants to put in the time to really do that and maintain it and do the upkeep that comes with this, because those automations over time require a lot of maintenance, I think that is there for that consumer. But for the mass market consumer, we're getting the building blocks in place in order to allow them to do it.
Yeah, and our data shows that there's definitely two big, very different groups of users right now. There's the people that are on their 10th device and have been in smart home for a while. And then because there's really post-COVID, there's been quite a bit of people coming into the market. About 45% of all US internet households now have at least one core smart home device. They're on their first or second device. So very kind of divergent sets of user groups using these. So can you share a little bit more about, again, kind of who's using Hubspace and like how they kind of get onto the platform, and then do they stay in the platform, or how does that work?
Yeah, I can share a little bit. So we have over 200 products. So one of the great parts of Home Depot, we cross every product category that's in your house minus TVs and mattresses. I think we only sell online. So we have customers across Hubspace products across a lot of those product categories. The main customer that we're targeting, we're getting is that first time coming into smart home consumers. So one of the things that I've always found an interesting stat to look at is the number of people buying mechanical and digital timers around the holiday season every year versus smart plugs. And our Hubspace smart plug was the only smart plug, Defiant smart plug powered by Hubspace, was the only smart plugs we sold in store for the past couple of years. Seeing the rate at which customers are adopting the smart versus the non-smart has definitely grown as consumers through the COVID years. Everybody's just more comfortable with controlling things from their phone and how they are on their phones. And not to mention, I think the industry as a whole has taken a large step forward in terms of cybersecurity and data privacy and making sure we're doing things right for our consumers.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, let's jump over to the standard side. I want to go kind of deep on the standard side and give you, Michelle, to start a moment to explain in the room, again, for those who aren't following closely, right, what's happening with Matter in particular, and then you mentioned Alira, of course, but what is Matter again, and what is it not?
Okay, so Matter is a global, open, smart home standard that is developing a common language for the Internet of Things. I put emphasis on the word language because what it is not is a full stack solution. Doesn't include a radio layer like, say, for instance, Zigbee or Z-Wave, but it's designed to allow a manufacturer and a developer to create a product that will talk to, as Stefan pointed out, multiple brands of platforms and to other products on different radio layers. So you can build Matter on top of Wi-Fi. You can build Matter on top of Thread, on Ethernet. And Matter also includes bridging capabilities, because there are so many embedded-based devices out there, whether it's appliances or other platforms or these various products on other standards. So Matter also creates a facility, if you will, to allow those devices to come into a Matter fabric and talk with each other.
Okay, so a couple big things have been announced pretty recently, and I'd love to just kind of get quick hits on why they matter, particularly, for these folks in the room developing these great products. So Apple announced that it was putting, Thread border routers in the Apple 15 Pro. Why, and why does that matter? How does that impact, how the users might be able to experience Matter-enabled ecosystem differently?
Right, and I think I'll build a little bit on what Nick was talking about relative to infrastructure and building platforms, the infrastructure for the smart home. So again, as a language kind of that sits at the application layer, there is a need for this infrastructure to allow devices to talk to each other. Thread, as a local connectivity solution, is something that allows devices to talk at a radio level with Matter on top. So including more Thread radios and products, including Thread border routers, to allow home networks to be successfully built and allow all those devices to talk together in a very active mesh, is a way to build out the infrastructure of the smart home. And so in addition to things like Apple putting border routers, Thread border routers in iPhones, we also saw with the release of Matter 1.4, home routers and access points, which we lovingly call HRAP. For those of you following along with acronyms. We also announced HRAP products that will have, again, that infrastructure of Wi-Fi and Thread built in as manufacturers adopt the specification to help flesh out that infrastructure. So it's simpler for people to bring new devices into their homes.
Okay, last quick hit one, and then I'd love to go to Avi to talk about Z-Wave a little bit. One announcement I saw, I think just maybe yesterday, was around Apple and Samsung and Google, I believe, allowing for Matter attestation or certification to also apply to their Works With programs, sort of simplifying those processes. If you could just explain a little bit about what that means.
Sure. And I'll try to be a little bit more precise about that. In short, today, companies bring products through a Matter certification process that involves ensuring compliance with the specification. We also developed, as a member service, a lab in Portland, Oregon, our interoperability lab. That lab tests, I'll say, beyond the specification and the certification components, allowing a product manufacturer to test in a more real-world environment against various smart home platforms and ecosystems. Again, proving out interoperability and performance in more of a real-world way. So this announcement it not only speaks to the value of the interoperability lab, but also that companies like Apple, and then, as you pointed out, also Google and Samsung, will be accepting results from our interop lab as inputs into their own Works With programs. That should help manufacturers kind of speed up the process of securing Works With badges, which will continue to have value, and there are many other things that those platform providers seek from their device partners. So this is a way to speed up development, speed up time to market, and improve performance for consumers.
Great. Everybody loves efficiency in the process, so thank you for that. Okay, Avi, love to turn to you. Michelle really explained eloquently about Matter being a language, not necessarily the full stack. We've got all of these great standards of how different devices can communicate that have different advantages to them. Tell us a little bit about how Z-Wave, fits into the larger ecosystem and how we should be thinking about Z-Wave alongside Matter development.
So it's a really interesting question. Obviously, one that we get very, very often at the Z-Wave Alliance, right? Where is the Z-Wave relevancy in this world of interoperability? We don't see Matter as a competitor, right? We don't see it as a us and them situation. There are great opportunities within the marketplace for when Z-Wave is the right solution for the problem, and there are great opportunities in the marketplace when Zigbee or LoRa or any of the other standards out there are the right solution for the problem. Z-Wave in and of itself being a full stack means that the developers have complete control from the radio level all the way up to the application layer and be able to control all of the elements of that to fit for their designs and for their solutions. That's not to take away from anything else that's interoperable, and there's no practical nor any technical reason why at some point Z-Wave won't also play in the same sandbox as lots of other standards. There are organizations and companies out there today, Nubo Casa and the Home Assistant guys, that allow for bridging of various types of networks within, from Z-Wave to LoRa and LoRa to Matter and Matter to Z-Wave and all kinds of things. Whether or not we've gotten to the point where all of the technical issues have been fixed, accounted for, evolved into, we're not there yet, but all of these are evolving standards. Z-Wave, in and of itself, is looking at ways of solving lots of communication problems within various industries. We've always been sort of centered on residential, and now we're branching out. Our new Z-Wave long range allows for different solutions for different industries that we've never been able to take advantage of before. And so as each of these standards evolve, they get to take advantage of those problem solvers. When the engineers sit back and they go, all right, I got to get this signal from point A to point B, and it's got to be interoperable with this, they get to choose what the right standard is for their application.
You mentioned kind of expanding beyond residential. Z-Wave has had a really strong presence within like home security, for instance, use, those types of systems. I believe there's also an announcement with SmartRent, looking at multifamily. Is that kind of one of those next areas of expansion that you're looking at, or are there other verticals?
No, it's a, you know, and it's funny because Z-Wave has been used in lots of different verticals for a long time. I myself did a very large hotel installation using Z-Wave many years ago. And so multifamily is a great extension of where Z-Wave is going. Z-Wave long range actually gives more opportunity in those kinds of environments because now we can network together 2 different mesh networks or 3 different mesh networks. So now you can have campus-wide environments. So smart city, and then industrial applications. Just yesterday, I was having a conversation. There's a big problem in the drone world where drones end up breaking their electronic leash because they rely on things like Wi-Fi and cellular. And there's some latency built into cellular, and Wi-Fi sometimes can be interfered with. Z-Wave long range is a really great opportunity to do command and control, right? It's not going to do the video, it's not going to be backup, but it's backup for the command and control of a drone, for instance. So the drone could be 1.5 miles away, and Z-Wave long range will still give you full bandwidth to be able to communicate with that drone, bring it back to its home base, and make sure that you don't lose communication with it. So there's lots of cool applications that we're just starting to scratch the surface on.
Awesome. Drones also have a new PR problem in New Jersey, I hear.
It's a whole other issue that we...
Yeah, okay. You know, I'd love to give you an opportunity to tell us more about the standard. You mentioned, of course, talking about those larger appliances, long lifetime appliances. Tell us a little bit about why you felt like a standard was needed for sharing energy consumption data and sharing data for these types of appliances specifically.
Very good. So HCA, as I mentioned before, was focused on the long life items. And what I'm talking about is these are your washers, your ovens, your refrigerators, the devices that basically stay in our homes for decades. The reason why we had created, we did spend a lot of time thinking, do we need to create an actual new standard and a new alliance to actually tackle this? Should we be part of Matter or CSA? And what we decided was that we do actually need to have a separate alliance to focus specifically on this decade-long approach. I think as manufacturers, we've seen standards come and go. We've seen even platforms come and go, right? And so I think what we do is we want to make sure that this, whatever we end up with, is meaningful, and there's a path to transition for our consumers who own these devices for over 10 years, right, or 15, 20 years. I think the second part I wanted to make sure is that we, HCA, focus on is, one is, the interoperability and kind of the communication between the manufacturer and the consumer. The other important piece is that all of this interoperability and connection, it actually leads to somewhere, right? And the somewhere, what I'm talking about is there's services and there's additional sort of business models that actually come from this, right? And we want to make sure that for the manufacturers, for the consumers, right? And for the service providers, whether it's retailer or energy utility, insurance, home security, that there's a path to make that service happen, and in the end, return that benefit to the consumer, right? So I think that's what keeps these initiatives sustainable and will keep it going, right? And so we spend a lot of energy focusing on that. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about sharing of energy consumption data? Because I think this is one thing that when we think about the energy conversation, we have a panel later all about energy. Utilities are definitely interested in seeing more information behind the meter. Consumers right now often don't have very granular access to what devices in their home are, consuming what types of energy. What does what you're working on mean for other ecosystem players and for consumers?
Yeah, I think the energy, there's so many different actual ways to reach that granular data. There's not one path to get there, right? If you have an appliance that's 5 years old, that's may or may not be part of the meter, there's alternative ways to get to that granular data. I think in the end, what we focus on is for the utility companies, what information do they need in order to provide efficiency and cost savings back to the consumer, right? Because in the end, all of this effort, if it actually doesn't net out to savings for consumers or savings on kind of the pressure on the grid, doesn't really mean anything, right? So what we do is we try to take a non-agnostic approach in terms of the many different ways to get to that. For example, the HCA first specification on energy focuses squarely on demand response and that only, right? And so what we're taking, we don't think there's a one solution to fit everything. We're almost taking it as chapters in these types of approaches. Same thing for home security or insurance, right? There's multiple data points that would actually help make these businesses more efficient, therefore returning the savings back to the consumer. And I think for our relationship, many of our members, the relationship with our consumers is, you may buy a refrigerator from me maybe 2 or 3 times in the whole life of our relationship, right? So it's pretty important, the trust and the continuity, right? So we really focus on that.
I love your description of chapters. That's a great way to think about it. Final follow-up here, and then I'd love to get back over to the platform side to Stefan and Nick. Can you explain a little bit how I know the CSA is also working on energy consumption sharing efforts, how the HCA's effort is different? Is it that focus, that real special focus on demand response, or can you describe a little bit about how those two efforts are different or complementary?
I think in the bigger picture of things, it's all headed in the same direction for sure. I think right now it's just almost different swim lanes, right? So HCA is focused on HVAC, long life items, appliances, these items that have long life. We actually do focus, not exclusively, but very primarily focus on C2C interaction. Because many of our utility service providers, many of our, security, all these, it's an easier path to get to connecting these older products that are already in our home. And so that's sort of where our focus is. I think what we, I know that for CSA and Matter, it's a much larger perspective that's kind of defining the overall sort of industry. But I do believe it's in the same direction, just different swim lanes for now.
Okay, great. Michelle, did you want to add?
Totally agree. And I think, stated it well in that there is so much embedded base equipment out there. There is such a need to be able to collect the information that is out there today to do that cloud-to-cloud connectivity. And then as people buy the next new thing and add other high-load equipment to their household, whether it's a heat pump or a water pump or a pool pump, that all of that data can start to be integrated both locally and then also in the cloud. So I think they're very complementary efforts.
Okay. All right, great. So Stefan and Nick, I want to come back to you guys and get your thoughts as, more platform players. How do you think about the various standards that are, available, how you make use of them or don't, or how you enable your users, to make use of them, and how you track the efforts that are happening in the industry?
It's great that there's so many different standards. I mean, who else would buy our hubs? No, just kidding. But I think, and that's also already what came out of the last conversations. A lot of these standards, they serve slightly different purposes, and you see that everywhere in the market, right? Some standards provide exceptionally long lanes and good reliability, but they may be a little bit more expensive to integrate. Others are more on the cheaper side, but they come with other disadvantages, either in bandwidth or in range, for instance, or in requirements for a hub. And you see that a lot of the devices and a lot of the engineers, they look at their application, they look at what's best for their ecosystem and their brand. And I think in the end, all of these standards and all of these standards progressing, I mean, it tremendously helps the consumers, because even though if there's different standards, having standards is always better than having, 1,000 of proprietary systems, because with standards, at least it's a handful or maybe 10. And then to make it really a win for consumer, I do believe that there should be proper user interfaces, proper platforms like Homey to integrate multiple of those standards into a single real user application, because otherwise you still have 10 ecosystems, and then as a user you don't want 1,000 ecosystems to choose from that are all proprietary, but you also don't want to have 10. Ideally you would have one application, one platform that combines it all. So that's the vision and the way that we look at it. And we also don't want to steer the market or whatever. If there's a very popular product that's based on a certain standard that apparently, has selected that standard for a good reason and is doing well, then, we'll follow that, and we'll make sure that the consumer can use that interoperable with other standards, no matter what the standard is or ends up to be. And I think that sort of, enabler role has given us a very nice and unique position to actually realize this vision of the whole smart home working together, based on, of course, the shoulders of giants of the standards that are there, because it's easier to implement 10 standards than, like I said, 1,000 proprietary APIs. In real life, you end up doing both, because there's still a lot of proprietary APIs. But that's okay. As an open platform, you can do both.
Well, and just as a follow-up to that, obviously with the acquisition of LG, who is ThinQ, right? So they have an interesting kind of dual strategy now. So you all coming in as an open part of their play, and then there's the ThinQ play.
Yeah, so they're opening up their ThinQ part as well. I mean, that's not our effort. That's the guy in Korea doing that. As you might see, I'm not super Korean. But indeed, they are opening up, but it's still a proprietary system and a proprietary API. But I do know that they are also moving towards Matter, at least Matter control. And I do also assume Matter recipients, and I do believe they're part of the HCA as well, so probably LG appliances will become compatible with that as well. It's just sometimes for a larger corporate it takes a little bit longer to get on the board than it allows us. And that's what we're here for, to help them accelerate their efforts and to make sure that we play and keep playing that front runner role under the Homey brand, and they can take more and more of our technology and make it available across their great appliances and devices as well.
So then, Nick, coming from more of a proprietary play, right? How you think about what standards are right for your experience?
So we are the advocates for the customer, the mass market consumer. And we take that very, very personally. Like, I have to work in a Home Depot store at least 4 days a year. I'm usually in a store every Thursday with an apron on, talking to a consumer, selling customers products. Once you have to start explaining what the difference between, to go back to the 2017 days of Zigbee, Z-Wave, this one works on this platform, this one works on that platform, you've lost the consumer. So where we focused our efforts on was a customer needs to be able to buy any one of our products. Again, over 200 products, categories across the store. If you buy any single one of those products and you take it home, you'll be able to set it up, get it connected in under 60 seconds or less, without another product being needed in your home. So we focused on the technologies that we knew all of our customers had in their homes today. So everybody has, at that point, that had a cell phone had Bluetooth. If you were buying a smart product, you had Wi-Fi. So all of our products are Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. You don't need product B in order to buy product A when you get it home, and you don't have to explain. You just tell the customer, if you buy this, you take it home, you download the Hubspace app, it will work. Now, from a proprietary platform point of view, yeah, I would love it if, you know, everybody were like me and had 100 Hubspace products in their house. But we want our customers to be able to, we're in the business of selling products to our customers, and our customers buying products from Home Depot. I want them to be able to control the products from whatever area or surface that they want to be able to control it from. You know, we can do anything, can do everything, you just can't do everything all at once. We started with the platforms that had the majority of the market share. Amazon, Alexa, and Google Home had a large portion of the market share, as Parks data shows us. So that's where we focused our efforts in making sure that we had the best value products that we could get to market, that were as simple as possible for customers to explain or to understand and get set up in their homes, to help our store associates be able to just have confidence in selling smart home and getting smart home products into that mass market. So for me, the standards are fantastic. I have nothing but support for Matter and all the other alliances pushing the industry forward, and we support them. For today, we are focused on what is the easiest for our customers to understand and get adopted in their homes.
Okay. So looking forward, what do you think, and then Stefan, I'm going to pose the same thing to you. What do you think is the next really layer of differentiation for the platform experience, right? That makes consumers choose to stick with one platform versus the other. I think we're getting a lot more kind of tighter competition among what platforms have really emerged as leaders and really at the table. Is it the intelligence? Is it the spread of the product portfolio support it? Is it the trust they have with you as a brand, right? And they know that they can come into the store and talk to the apron guys and who can help them with their problem, right? What's going to differentiate the next platform kind of level there?
I think that's a hard question to answer because there are a lot of different types of customers. But I think for the mass market customer, it's going to be, what is the simplest platform that provides the most value to the customer? Or am I able to tie together my ceiling fan and my window air conditioner to more efficiently cool my house? Very easy value add things for the mass market consumer that are given to them in a very easy way. I'll speak for the mass market consumer. I think there are, I'll let Homie go for their answer.
No, I agree that actually saving money, or like the ACH also mentioned, like having a cost first or a price first reason really helps with mass market adoption, because not everyone just buys it because they're interested in tech. Some people just want a real life application, like saving money, like saving energy. And luckily, mainly because of the work of these standards, I think the first differentiator of having that broad product range supported, I think, has been covered by most mature platforms. Also, as platforms matured, obviously we came from like 100 and consolidated into 5, maybe 10 really relevant ones. I think future looking, it will be towards providing value, for instance, through energy monitoring, energy saving, energy timings with dynamic energy prices. I think that's an important one. Automation, making sure that you get more out of your devices by having them really work together, because it started out with control, but control at a certain point is a given, and automation is next. And I think people will become a little bit more, some people, not everyone, will become a little bit more aware of, what kind of privacy policy, and if they're really converging towards a single platform, who do they trust their data with? Do they want it cloud operated or locally operated? Do they want to spend a little bit more but have it not with an advertising company, or do they want to spend less and have your data hosted by an advertising company? It's those sort of choices that people will be able to make, but only because that first hygiene layer of having connectivity, being able to connect all those devices. And I'm super happy to hear that you're opening a Hubspace to more platforms as well, because of course we would love to integrate it as well. Is there, and we can build on towards the real value of smart home, because connectivity and control is a hygiene factor, but the real value is in automation, it's in energy savings, it's in real life monetary things, and then of course it's a personal choice on privacy, local or cloud.
Great. Love to see partnerships happening on stage. Just have a minute or so left. I'd love to do just a quick hit of on the standard side, what are you focusing on? What's next for standards development for Z-Wave, for Matter, and for HCA that we can kind of expect coming down the pipe here?
So for us, our three initiatives for 2025 are the expansion of Z-Wave Long Range, the addition of S2V2, our new encryption methodology to make us even more compliant with the CyberTrust mark that's coming out later this year, and third is batteryless technology. So we're actually adding an environment within Z-Wave that will allow for the use of batteryless sensors and things within the Z-Wave environment.
Okay, Michelle?
Okay, I'll try to be that brief as well. Very good. So from a Matter perspective this year, we are going to continue forward with our release cadence as the market has continued to see. Focus continues to be on making sure that we've got a very robust software development kit that's open sourced, available for everyone to get access to. We're going to continue to evolve, and I think there's already been some news out there. Our device portfolio, adding some new devices as the year progresses, and continuing to progress things like our energy management features, et cetera, that were so well developed in Matter 1.4.
Okay, fantastic. Yunho?
Yeah, I think for HCA, there's so much good work that's being done in the industry. 2025 and beyond, we're going to focus on how do we take what we do and make this actually connectable to the larger ecosystem of home services and home ecosystems that's out there, right? So that means what we do, how do we connect this to other businesses and industry sectors that are out there to, in fact, create business models that will provide benefit back to the consumer. I think that's going to be our core focus for going forward, and we look forward to that.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we are out of time. Please join me in thanking our panelists for their great insights today.